Everybody, this is Dream, and today we have a massive 13-game Major League Baseball slate. Before I get started, can you guys smash that like and subscribe button? Also, I've got some core plays here for you, but I need to explain this because I don't actually have 5 players in my core plays. What I have is I have 2 sets of different core plays, depending on if you choose to stack San Diego in Colorado tonight. If you go with the San Diego stack, then Sanchez, Escobar, and Tatis Jr. are the core plays. And if you don't, then Olsen, Escobar, and Acuna Jr. are the core plays. So do keep that in mind. Before I get started, though, I do want to mention some weather risks. The Kansas City-Baltimore game, the Dodgers-Philly game, the Boston-New York Yankees game, and the New York Mets-Pittsburgh game all have some smoke risk. Now, in the order that I mentioned them, is the likelihood that they could be suspended, as in the Baltimore game has the most chance. I honestly don't think any of them will be suspended, but maybe the Baltimore game does. But we'll have to wait and see, obviously. There's also some weather risk in the first 3 games, the Baltimore, Philly, and New York Yankee game when it comes to rain, so do keep that in mind as well. But you'll have to check back later. You jump in Discord or something like that. I will try to update when we get information about those games there. So that's what I wanted to mention for the weather aspect. So let's go ahead and also show you our WOBA stat sheet today. This is kind of my cheat sheet for WOBA for baseball. And as you can see, the guys that are in caps are the players for the main slate. The lowercase are actually the early slate today. I do put this in Discord most days, so do check out Discord. The link is in the description below if you want to see that every day, or at least most days. I don't get to it every day, but I do try to do it most days. Then we're going to look at our pitching, and I have 4 P1 options here today. Ohtani and Castillo both draw great, interesting opportunities. Now, they actually face each other, and I do think Ohtani is slightly better than Castillo, but I think both guys are in play, and they're pretty close to the same price. Garrett Cole and Javier are both more expensive, but they do have viability today. But they're a little bit riskier because they're having tougher matchups than Ohtani and Castillo are. Moving into our P2 options, Stroman is my top P2 option. I think he's the best option as a P2 play. He's also pitched fairly well, though he does draw a decently tough matchup. Darvish, Case, and Perez all have some interesting upside in these matchups, and they all draw good situations, with the exception of Darvish being at Colorado. They all have good contrarian availability today. Then we'll look at our alternatives to P2 as well, and also Smith Shawver for Atlanta. Now, Shawver is very inexpensive, and he almost is a Hail Mary play, but he's pitched really well in the minors, and he has really good metrics for this game, so I do think he's viable today. And then, of course, Wells is in play for Baltimore. And then Lavoy Allen, I'm thinking of basketball. Allen and Lively, Cleveland and Cincinnati's pitchers all have some Hail Mary potential today, but they are facing extremely tough matchups and are very risky. So do keep that in mind. But that's what I got for pitchers today. Let's move into our bats today. And I'm going to clear out the San Diego players here. Actually, I'm just going to clear all these guys out here. So our top options here for catcher at first are Gary Sanchez here. Oops. Sorry about that, guys. Gary Sanchez here. I cannot get this to work. All right, San Diego. He draws really good metrics here. He's hit the ball really well lately. He's only played a handful of games this year so far, but he's already got 4 home runs. He has really nice metrics for this game, especially it being in Colorado. And if you do a San Diego stack, he is a great option for this. Then for a contrarian option, William Contreras for Milwaukee. While his batting average has dropped down some, he still has massive home run potential, and he is starting to hit the ball well again, as he's had several two-hit games the last few games. He was a little bit of a slump, but he looks like he's out of it, so I like his upside and good matchup here, and great metrics overall and home run potential. You could also consider Francisco Alvarez, Sean Murphy, Will Smith, and Ryan Jeffers at this position. The top options at this position have a ton of potential today with great metrics, home run potential, and everything else. Every play listed, even the considerable options, also have good upside today. So it's really going to come down to like which team you stack. Probably is where you're going to want to go catcher wise for the most part. Then we'll look at our first baseman, and we'll start with Matt Olson for Atlanta, who draws really good metrics here. He is a core play for me. He has been up and down throughout the season, but his home run potential is really high, though his batting average has been kind of rough. But he is still managed to score some fantasy points most games, and he is kind of due for a home run, and he's got the metrics today to do it. Mountcastle for Baltimore is also in play. It's nice to see Baltimore on the list again. His batting average similarly is not very good, but he has good metric for this game, and I like his upside despite the fact he's been in a little bit of a slump. He's in a good matchup. Then we'll look at Ryan Noda for Oakland, who draws a very interesting matchup here against Milwaukee. He is a Hail Mary play, but he does have high risk and high reward here, and he's got good potential as home run potential as well. We also have two other Hail Mary plays in Jose Abreu and Brandon Belt, who are both high risk, high reward with good home run potential. You could also consider Spencer Steer, Vlad Jr., Lamont Wade Jr., Josh Naylor, Donovan Solano, Jared Walsh, and Jake Cronenworth at this position. First base is definitely a position worth a lot of considerable expensive options. There are good options across the board, but there are also a bunch of cheap guys that have home run potential that you could utilize. I definitely am going to try to pay up, though, with Olsen, Mountcastle, and some others like that in most of my lineups today. Moving into second base, we're going to look at Mookie Betts here as our first option. He's obviously super expensive. He's going to be hard to roster. His batting average is leaving a little bit to be desired, especially with him being overpriced today. Even though he's been overpriced most of the time, he is hard to roster at this price, which put me into our value play at this position in Eduardo Escobar. He feels a lot like Jimenez did yesterday. His metrics are really off the charts for this matchup. He's got good upside, and he could also play third base, though I do think he's better fit here at second base, where there's a lot less good options. You could also consider Jake Cronenworth, Jose Altuve, Ozzy Albies, Luis Arraez, Nolan Gorman, and Luis Urias at this position. Overall, second base are good plays in all price ranges. It's actually a pretty solid day for this position, though there's not a ton of options. There's some good options across the board. So I do think paying down or cheap is probably better, but you definitely have some ability to pay in the $4,000 to $5,000 range as well. Moving into third base, we're going to start with Manny Machado for San Diego. If you go with a San Diego stack, he is in play, though he's high risk, high reward as he's been in a slump, but he definitely draws good metrics for this matchup. And if you want to go cheap with San Diego, then you can go with Kim, as he draws some really good matchups for this game, and he has really good upside and potential. He's also hit the ball really well lately. He's had some really good games, and he's not a home run hitter really, but he definitely draws good metrics for this one. He can also play third base today if you would rather. Then we'll look at Austin Riley for Atlanta. Now, he has some of the best metrics for this position, and he's a little bit cheaper than Machado, and he's been really good lately. He's also got home run potential here, and I like his upside. Eduardo Escobar can also play this position as well. You could also consider Jose Ramirez, who's hit the ball really well yesterday, Alex Bregman, Kyle Farmer, Donovan Solano, Ryan McMahon, Chris Taylor, and Luis Urias here. Third base is a very deep position today with players available in all price ranges with lots of upside. I definitely think paying up here is a pretty good option, whereas you could pay down at second base and then pay up at third. Moving to shortstops, this is going to be an interesting position today, as we have some guys out, but we also have some guys that look really good. Lindor is going to be our top option here for the Mets, who look really solid. Though he has been inconsistent this season, he draws good metrics for this matchup, but he is a little overpriced considering the way he's played this season. The same can be said for Carlos Correa. He's a little bit cheaper, but he hasn't hit the ball well. But he does have some upside in this matchup, and he did hit a home run yesterday, so that gives him some, potential here. But then we'll look at Kim again. He can play shortstop today, and he definitely fits better here than he does at third base simply because there's so many good options there. And then we're going to look at De La Cruz for Cincinnati. He has come into Major League Baseball with 3 straight just really good games for his prices. His price has obviously popped up some at $3,700, but it's still just too cheap. Now, he doesn't draw the metrics that you love since he's away now, but he definitely has some upside here. and I like his potential. Though he had struck out 3 times yesterday. That he had the toughest matchup yesterday, and he still managed 8 fantasy points. Got a stolen base, got a hit, and he was one of the only guys to do anything for Cincinnati yesterday. So he is in play. He's going to be popular probably due to the fact that he's hit the ball so well to start, and the power is obviously there, and he's got doubles, triples, and stolen base potential and home run potential and everything else. So he is in play, but he is somewhat risky today. Be a little bit more expensive, but he's still viable with that price. You could also consider Kyle Farmer, Willie Adames, Trey Turner, Jeremy Pena, Andrew Monsanto, and Royce Lewis at this position. Shortstop does feel pretty rough, and most guys are overpriced for their potential, but there are some different options. I'd fill the position in last today and go with whoever fits, or especially if you've got like a stackable team, or if you just want to go with De La Cruz and take a flyer on him again, which is definitely something that I think you should do in at least a couple lineups. Moving to the outfielders, we got a lot of guys here. This position, I'm going to start off by saying, is extremely deep. There's great options that are expensive. There's great options that are value. There's great cheap options. Overall, it's just a great position in general. So our top options are Tatis Jr., Juan Soto as kind of an alternative to Tatis, then Ronald Acuna, and then Kyle Schwarber is kind of an alternative, and then Bryce Harper. Acuna, Soto, and Bryce Harper all have just absolutely massive home run potential. And then Soto and Schwarber, they're kind of boomer bust today, but they are great alternatives to those three. Moving into our value plays, we'll start with Nemo. For the Mets, I really do like the Mets today. He's hit the ball really well. He did hit a grand slam yesterday. I don't expect him to hit a home run, but he does get a lot of 2-hit games. And while he's had a little bit of a slump up and down, he still manages 2-hit games occasionally during that time, but it looks like he's getting back to his normal self. Austin Hayes is in play, and while it's been a while since I feel like I've had any Baltimore players in my videos, it's nice to see Hayes have some really good viability here. His metrics are extremely good for this game, and he looks like a really good value play on the slate. If you go with San Diego, Grisham is a guy that you should stack if you go with the San Diego stack. Though he doesn't hit the ball well, he has home run metrics in this matchup, and so that draws him as a good value or Hail Mary play if you go with that kind of stack. Tommy Pham is also in play. He has hit the ball really well lately. He's had some big games with home runs. I like his upside here. He started the season pretty rough, but he is hitting the ball better, and I like his upside in this matchup, but he is somewhat high risk, high reward. Then we'll look at Santander for Baltimore, who is also a little bit more expensive than I'd like him to be, but he has home run potential here. It's not all that often when his metrics align for him to be a good home run potential guy, but he draws that today, and so I like his upside, though he's high risk, high reward, as his price is considerably higher than the other guys I'm mentioning. Marcell Ozuna comes in with a good home run potential game here. He's hit the ball pretty well lately. He's actually had a 5-game hitting streak going. He goes up and down. He is a very irritating player because he can hit lots of home runs, but then he'll just go in a slump where he'll have just basically be non-existent for a week or two. So he is a problem from that perspective, but while he's hitting the ball, he's definitely in play. Michael Harris looks like maybe he's going to start getting out of his slump after he beat the Mets 2 games ago when he got a home run, he said that he felt like the weight was lifted off his shoulder. He followed it up with another 10 fantasy point game yesterday. I like his upside here. He's very cheap and he's very viable. He feels a little safer if he's starting to feel himself here, so I like his upside. And then Jack Sawinski here for Pittsburgh. He started the season extremely good. His batting average has kind of subsided, but he does draw good matchup metrics for this one, and so he is a viable option. You can also consider a bunch of guys: Mark Canha, Charlie Blackmon, Kyle Tucker, Starling Marte, Glenn Carriero-Stanton, Christian Yelich, Nick Castellanos, Joey Wimmer, Chase McCormick, Will Brennan, Ian Happ, and Jock Peterson. Overall, this position is just extremely deep, and there's lots of good options across the board. If you want to see my full write-up for this slate, you can join Patreon. That's a link in the description below. Make sure to check out the Discord because I do drop a lot of information there, and I try to give you information about weather and stuff like that as we get it as well. So with that said, guys, thank you for liking, commenting, subscribing. If you have any comments or questions, feel free to leave them below, and have a nice day, guys.